The morning of my birthday started like any other, except it wasn't meant to celebrate me. My parents had that smug glint in their eyes, the kind that always preceded a lesson in humiliation. "Close your eyes," my mother commanded, her tone sharp yet dripping with fake sweetness. I hesitated, but their presence left no room for refusal. Dad chuckled behind me, and my sister smirked as if she knew the cruel surprise awaiting me. My heart pounded, a mixture of apprehension and the faint, bitter hope that maybe, just maybe this time, they would actually do something normal. The moment my blindfold covered my eyes, darkness swallowed me completely. The car engine roared to life, jolting me against the seat. I tried to ask where we were going, but my voice was met with laughter. My parents called each other names and jokes, cruel and dismissive, while I sat strapped in. Helpless, my mind racing with possibilities. Every instinct screamed that this was not a birthday surprise, it never was. The smell of damp leather and the faint scent of exhaust filled my nostrils, and every bump in the road made me flinch, wondering what form of torment awaited me. Hours or maybe minutes? I couldn't tell, passed in silence broken only by their occasional laughter. Then, abruptly, the car stopped. I could feel the engine cut, the sudden shift of gravity as the doors opened. "Here we are," my mother sneered. "Best gift? Not seeing you, of course." Dad added a low, cruel chuckle. The straps were loosened, and I felt the grass under my feet. The field stretched endlessly in all directions, an ocean of tall, swaying grass with no path. No hint of civilization, nothing but isolation. I staggered, unsteady, the blindfold still tight over my eyes. They didn't guide me, didn't help me. Instead, they left. Their laughter echoed across the open field as the car disappeared down the dirt road. I stood alone, the blindfold preventing even a glimpse of the world around me. Every sound amplified, the distant rustle of trees, the hum of the wind, my own ragged breathing. Panic surged, my pulse skyrocketing, but beneath it, a cold, hard clarity began to form. They thought leaving me stranded, humiliated, alone, would break me, but all it did was sharpen my mind, sharpen my resolve. I fell to my knees in the tall grass, pulling the blindfold slowly from my face. The sunlight was harsh, blinding at first, but it revealed the reality of the place, endless fields stretching to the horizon. No one in sight, no road, no life, just isolation and the bitter proof of their cruelty. My hands dug into the dirt, and I let myself feel the full weight of their mockery, every insult, every act of abandonment. Years of being ignored, belittled, and treated as worthless surged within me. But now, instead of breaking, it ignited something far more powerful. This field, empty and indifferent, became the canvas for my plan. I would survive, of course, but I would also turn every ounce of humiliation they had poured into me back on them. They believed I was helpless, that I was nothing without their guidance, their attention, their approval. But standing there in the open air, the sun burning my skin, I realized I had all I needed. Patience, planning, cunning, and the certainty that when the time came, they would regret every cruel word, every laugh, every act of abandonment. I took a deep breath, feeling the wind against my face, letting it fuel my resolve. They thought they had left me to rot, to flounder, to feel utterly powerless. They didn't know I was already calculating, already planning the most precise, devastating revenge. Every step I took back to civilization would be measured, deliberate. A quiet march toward reclaiming everything they had stolen from me. And when it finally happened, when they thought they were untouchable, they would see that the child they humiliated, the one they abandoned in a field for a birthday, had grown into someone unstoppable, someone they could never control, and someone they would never forget. The field seemed endless as I finally managed to stand, dusting the dirt and grass from my clothes, muscles aching from both exhaustion and anger. The blindfold had been lifted, but the feeling of invisibility, of being utterly disregarded, lingered. I could still hear their laughter echoing faintly in my memory, a cruel soundtrack to the start of my resolve. Every step I took toward the distant road was measured, deliberate, not driven by panic, but by the steady burn of revenge forming in my mind. This wasn't just about surviving their humiliation, it was about making them understand. Finally, what it felt like to leave someone behind. Powerless and mocked, I spent the following days quietly observing them, tracking their routines, their habits, the way they flaunted their arrogance without ever considering the consequences. My parents, in their comfortable bubble, assumed that I would remain defeated, that the birthday prank, the public abandonment, had achieved its intended effect. They did not know I had used that moment to ignite a meticulous plan, one that would see their pride stripped layer by layer, their sense of control replaced by uncertainty, fear, and ultimately, dependence. I began by reclaiming what they had thought trivial, their keys, access codes, the minor privileges they flaunted, invisible to the world but vital to their sense of dominance. Each item, each small act, was carefully planned to frustrate them, to erode their confidence, all while I remained unseen. Their perfectly ordered home began to unravel subtly, alarms triggered unexpectedly, schedules mismatched, communications delayed. Dad's smug control over the family business was subtly undermined by emails and messages redirected through my careful intervention. Mom's meticulous social plans started to fail, her influence quietly questioned by friends and colleagues. Then, the psychological strike came. I arranged for a minor family gathering, an event they expected to dominate, a chance to flaunt their control over everyone, including me. I ensured the chaos was orchestrated perfectly. The invitations were late, my sister's accolades misrepresented, minor accidents carefully timed to draw attention. Their faces, once smug and untouchable, showed panic and confusion. Friends and family whispered, glances were exchanged, and my parents, who had always thrived on appearances, were forced to confront their own failings. Each flinch, each moment of disorientation, was the silent message of my long-awaited revenge. The ultimate confrontation came subtly, without violence or dramatic spectacle. I invited them under the pretense of reconciliation. They arrived, confident, expecting me to show humility, to apologize for any imagined slight, to kneel in gratitude. Instead, I revealed the scope of my plan: the disrupted schedules, the redirected communications, the carefully manipulated social interactions, and my quiet success while they assumed I was broken. Their expression shifted from disbelief to panic. The arrogance they had wielded for decades reduced to a fragile veneer. I let the silence stretch, the weight of realization settling over them like a storm. They begged, pleaded, and questioned how I could have orchestrated it all without detection. Their voices trembled, pride shattered into fragments. Every sneer, every dismissive word, every act of cruelty they had poured onto me returned in mirrored consequence. I didn't need to shout or show anger. The quiet authority of preparation and patience spoke volumes. My sister, once the golden child, watched helplessly, realizing that her perceived privilege could not protect her from the fallout of their collective arrogance. By the end of the week, I had turned the entire family dynamic upside down. They were humbled, exposed, and forced to reckon with the consequences of their cruelty, all orchestrated with precision and patience. I had transformed the birthday humiliation, the blindfold, the abandoned field, into the cornerstone of their reckoning. And as I finally walked away, leaving them to absorb the full weight of their arrogance, I felt a liberation I had never known. The child they mocked, abandoned, and ridiculed had not only survived, they had risen, meticulously, brilliantly, and irrevocably victorious. For the first time, I realized that revenge didn't require spectacle or violence. It required patience, intelligence, and the ability to let their own hubris be their undoing. And in that quiet, personal triumph, I knew that they would never forget the lesson, that cruelty leaves a trail, and the one you underestimate can rise to reclaim everything you thought you owned.